2023. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley, for 30 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present a resolution that I am introducing in this House and that I hope will receive prompt passage and bipartisan support. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas in recent weeks, tent encampments have spread at universities across the country. These encampments are illegal and in violation of university policies. They have become rife with anti-Semitic threats and acts of violence, harassment, and other disruptive behavior. Some universities have responded by even-handedly enforcing the law and clearing the encampments. They have emphasized the right of students to protest and express their opinions in innumerable ways while making it clear that acts in violation of the law or university rules will not be tolerated. Other universities have decided to ignore the law and ignore their own policies, allowing encampments and other illegal activity associated with them to grow unchecked for weeks. Encampments have made demands of universities, such as divesting from companies tied to Israel, cutting ties with Hillel campus programs, and ending study abroad programs to Israel. Some of these universities have even negotiated with those in the encampments and agreed to their demands around changes in university policy, including Northwestern University, UC Riverside, Brown, Rutgers, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Minnesota. Still others have canceled classes, moved to online meetings, or canceled graduation ceremonies, and that includes Columbia, UCLA, UC San Diego, and Emory University. These encampments and the criminal behavior connected to them, such as threats or acts of violence, blocking or occupying buildings, genuine harassment, or other disruptive behavior, are not protected by the First Amendment. To the contrary, they disrupt the operation of the university and the academic freedom and speech rights of other students. Free speech on campus means universities should encourage free and open expression in speech, writing, listening, challenging, and learning, while never shielding students from ideas the university disagrees with or limiting expression on the basis of content. It does not mean universities should tolerate the promotion of violence, the destruction of property, the obstruction of students' freedom of movement, harassment, vandalism, or other unlawful acts. Resolved, the House finds canceling classes and commencement in response to unlawful encampments is unacceptable and unfair to the majority of students. The House condemns any negotiation where a university changes its policy in response to the demands of those engaged in unlawful activity on campus. The House condemns any concessions made by universities based on demands from those participating in unlawful encampments, including ending study abroad programs to Israel, cutting ties with Hillel, and divesting from companies associated with Israel. The House calls on universities across the country to work with local law enforcement to immediately clear tent encampments from university property and restore safe learning environments on their campuses, and further resolves that non-compliant student, faculty, or staff be subject to appropriate consequences. Mr. Speaker, I am hopeful that we can come together and pass this resolution and it can set the right tone for universities across the country. Because by this point, it is clear as day that the wrong approach is to allow illegal encampments to exist on campus and then to keep growing, and growing, as we've seen at UCLA, at USC, at Columbia. That only makes the problem more unmanageable. It only causes things to spiral out of control. The universities that have taken the right approach have said, you as a student are fully protected under the First Amendment to express yourself on any topic with any opinion you'd like in countless different ways. You are free to do that on our campus. But what you are not free to do is to set up structures on campus to impede other students, to engage in threats or acts of violence and other unlawful disruptive conduct that we've been seeing on these campuses. So I'm hoping that this resolution will point in the right direction those universities who have been approaching this problem in the wrong way to the detriment of their students. Now, perhaps the only thing more disgraceful than these illegal pro-Hamas encampments is the way that these universities have catered to them. But perhaps even more disgraceful than that is the way that some politicians have. The way that some political leaders have remained silent or have refused to condemn things that are so morally clear, have equivocated on the clearest of moral questions. Well, President Biden did come out and make a strong statement today. Up to this point, his response has been manifestly inadequate. The governor of my state, Governor Newsom in California, has had next to nothing to say about it, even though some of the worst situations are on California campuses. And just today, the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, testified before our committee, the Education and the Workforce Committee. Now, Mr. Cardona came into this hearing with a troubling record. For example, he recently refused to say whether chants of "From the River to the Sea" are anti-Semitic. Now, at today's hearing, I asked him some basic questions. I asked him if he would condemn the illegal tent encampments on university campuses. Secretary Cardona refused to do so. I asked him if he would condemn faculty members who interfere with the attempts of law enforcement to clear out these encampments and enforce the law. Secretary Cardona refused to condemn them. I asked him if he would condemn calls to divest from Israel. Secretary Cardona refused to do so. Perhaps most incredibly, I asked the Secretary several times, Secretary Cardona, will you condemn calls for universities to cut ties with Hillel, as, for example, the organization Students for Justice in Palestine recently did at UC Santa Cruz? I asked him again and again, Secretary Cardona, will you condemn calls to cut ties with Hillel? And Secretary Cardona refused to do so. Why is this so hard? Hillel is a center for Jewish community and campus life on campuses all across the country. And Secretary Cardona is unwilling to condemn those who say universities should cut ties with these organizations. Secretary Cardona is unwilling to condemn these overtly anti-Semitic statements. So given what the president said today, if we are to take seriously his statements condemning what is happening on our university campuses, we need to ask the question whether we can take that commitment seriously so long as Miguel Cardona remains his Secretary of Education. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this administration's proposal to cut funding for the charter school program. This is an incredibly important program for many charter schools across the country in allowing them to start up and offer an option to students in communities across the United States. Now, prior to this year, this administration's support for charter schools has been tepid at best. Funding for the charter school program has remained flat, as funding for various other parts of the education budget have increased substantially. And yet this year, the administration went a step further. Its proposed budget for the Department of Education proposes a $40 million cut to the charter school program, from $440 million to $400 million. Now, Secretary Cardona was asked about this at today's hearing. And he explained, well, the Fiscal Responsibility Act requires us to make budget cuts, and so he decided to go after charter schools. Mr. Speaker, that makes no sense whatsoever. The department is asking for a significant increase in its budget this year. A $3.7 billion increase so that its overall discretionary budget is $82.5 billion. So they're asking for a $3.7 billion funding increase while cutting funding for the charter school program by $40 million. Mr. Speaker, I am in strong opposition to these cuts, and I hope that this House will push back on them in a bipartisan manner. Because the reality is that charter schools across the country have made tremendous progress in closing achievement gaps and expanding the options that are available to parents. In fact, a recent study out of Stanford validated the work that charter schools have done, the results that they have gotten in closing achievement gaps that have persisted in other parts of our public education system. The reality is that there are far too many communities in this country, particularly in my state of California, where schools simply are not getting the job done, where the neighborhood school that young people, that kids are assigned to, does not teach them to read in the way that it should, does not teach them math in the way that it should, leaving them ill-prepared for success in life. But in many of these communities, you've had charters like KIPP Academy, many others, that have started up, that have done things differently, that have had high expectations, and that have made significant gains, that have gotten kids reading above grade level, outperforming their peers in other schools in math, and putting them on a path to future opportunity and success in life. But that is exactly what this proposal from this administration is going to cut funding for. It should also be noted that even in communities that have good public schools, like in my district, we have a number of truly outstanding traditional public schools, charter schools are still of value. We have a number of terrific charter schools as well, and they might be right for some families, but not for others. But that's the entire point, is that not every student is the same, not every family is the same, and allowing a variety of options, some of which might have different focuses or a different approach to pedagogy, or might offer immersion education or a focus on career technical education. This empowers parents to make the choice that is right for their child and their family. So I find it completely unacceptable that this administration is withdrawing support for charter schools. I also find it unacceptable that my state of California has taken a number of steps in recent years to make it more difficult to start up, to operate, to renew charter schools. And what we need to do is look to the success that many charters have had to draw lessons that we can then use to improve public education across this country so that every child in America has access to a quality education as they deserve. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to a forthcoming increase in the gas tax in California. It almost defies belief, but California's gas tax is about to increase yet again, reaching 60 cents per gallon. Now, the state already has the highest gas tax in the country, and by far the highest gas prices. As of today, Californians pay $1.70 more per gallon for gas than the national average, and 53 cents more per gallon than the next closest state. I'll say that again, we pay 53 cents more per gallon than the state with the second highest gas prices. Even if you were actually to eliminate the entire gas tax in California, 60 cents per gallon, we would still have the second highest gas prices in the entire country. So I am calling on Governor Newsom and the legislature to act to make sure that this gas tax increase does not go into effect. Californians are already suffering under inflation and the price of groceries and the price of electricity as well, which is second highest of any state in the country. The last thing they need is another increase to the gas tax. So I am calling on state lawmakers to stop this gas tax increase, and as a matter of fact, what they should really do is suspend the gas tax entirely. It wouldn't bring prices down to a reasonable level, but would provide folks throughout our state with relief that they very much need. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to now recognize a few outstanding individuals and organizations within my district. Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize retiring Sergeant Major Douglas Power for his distinguished service with the United States Marine Corps. Most recently, as the Government and External Affairs Officer for the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport, California. Doug entered the Marine Corps Reserve in August of 1980 and went on to graduate from boot camp and transfer to active duty in 1985. After first transferring overseas in 1987, his deployments to various locations, including Korea, Kuwait, and Iraq, underscored his commitment to defending our country. Throughout his more than 3 decades of military service, Sergeant Major Power displayed an unwavering dedication to service and leadership. Deservingly, he was awarded multiple decorations and medals, demonstrating the legacy of honor and sacrifice that he established. He retired from military service in 2012, at which time he began his new career as the Government and External Affairs Officer at the Training Center. After 12 years of faithful dedication to civic service and community engagement, he retired from that role on April 30th of this year, 2024. I am proud to represent outstanding service members like Sergeant Major Power in Congress. I thank him for his service to our district and our country. Therefore, on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, I am honored to recognize Sergeant Major Douglas Power for his heroic and invaluable service to our country and community, and wish him the best in his retirement. Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize retiring County Counsel Stacy Simon for her 25 years of service to Mono County. Stacy has served the people of Mono County for more than 2 decades, most recently as County Counsel, and never wavered from her goal of making the county a better place. Throughout Stacy's tenure, she not only skillfully handled the routine business of the county, but also guided Mono through various complex problems and challenges, including the uncertainties of COVID-19. Additionally, she played an instrumental role in many local projects, most notably the construction of the Lee Vining Community Center and preschool program, the county's solid waste franchise system, implementation of HIPAA housing developments, and much more. Looks like we had an issue with our graphics, so I think I'm going to start over, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize retiring County Counsel Stacy Simon for her 25 years of service to Mono County. Stacy has served the people of Mono County for more than 2 decades, most recently as County Counsel, and never wavered from her goal of making the county a better place. Throughout Stacy's tenure, she not only skillfully handled the routine business of the county, but also guided the county through various complex problems and challenges, including the uncertainties of COVID-19. Additionally, she played an instrumental role in many local projects, most notably the construction of the Lee Vining Community Center and preschool program, the county's solid waste franchise system, implementation of HIPAA, housing developments, and much more. No matter the obstacle, Stacy has been a model of positive leadership as she's helped the county weather every crisis, hardship, or transition it faced. Stacy is known for her incredible depth of knowledge, curiosity, and tenacity, as well as for demonstrating the utmost care and concern for her clients and county staff. Therefore, on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, I am honored to recognize Stacy Simon for the dedicated leadership and years of service she provided to the people of Mono County, and I proudly join Mono County in wishing her the very best in her retirement. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to recognize the Alpine Watershed Group for receiving the 2022 Forest Service Volunteers Program Citizen Stewardship and Partnerships Award. The Alpine Watershed Group is a community-based nonprofit organization in my district that is dedicated to conducting essential water quality monitoring, habitat restoration, and education programs throughout Alpine County. Over the span of more than 2 decades, the Alpine Watershed Group has been an instrumental partner to the Humboldt-Toyobe National Forest and the United States Forest Service. In 2022 alone, the Alpine Watershed Group planned and recruited for multiple volunteer events in the forest, including large watershed and forest restoration projects, trash and roadside cleanups, tree planting, and watershed monitoring. Due to the help of their volunteers at the annual Creek Day event, 72 bags of trash were removed, amounting to more than 500 pounds. 25 bags of invasive weeds were removed, 102 willow stakes were installed, 600 feet of fence in Hope Valley were removed, and a beaver dam analog in Faith Valley was constructed. In addition to these efforts, the group provides continual outreach and environmental education programs that support the United States Forest Service's mission to care for the land and serve the people. Their devoted efforts have made an indelible impact on our national forests, local watersheds, and on the Alpine County community. Therefore, on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, I am honored to recognize the Alpine Watershed Group for this outstanding accomplishment and commend them for their significant contributions and dedication to promoting the sustainability of our nation's natural resources. And now, Mr. Speaker, I wish to mark and celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the Seroptimus International of Loomis Basin Club. Over the span of 5 decades, they have made a significant contribution in the Loomis community and Sacramento region by investing in the development of women of all ages and fostering a passion to make both our local and international communities a better place. The Loomis chapter of Seroptimus International was founded in 1974 with the mission to provide women and girls with the access to education and training they need to achieve economic empowerment. In addition to hosting and participating in many local events, they provide scholarships and grants for women to improve their economic status while honing valuable skills to further their education and help with employment opportunities. Their dedicated efforts have made a meaningful difference in the lives of women and girls, and it is an honor to represent exemplary organizations like the Seroptimus International of Loomis Basin here in Congress. Therefore, on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, I am honored to recognize the Loomis Basin Seroptimus and their 50 years of dedication to the women of our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, okay. We're going to go ahead and recognize Sergeant Douglas Power again, so we have the appropriate accompanying graphic. Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize retiring Sergeant Major Douglas Power for his distinguished service to the United States Marine Corps. Most recently, as the Government and External Affairs Officer for the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport, California. Doug entered the Marine Corps Reserve in August of 1980 and went on to graduate from boot camp and transfer to active duty in 1985. After first transferring overseas in 1987, his deployments to various locations, including Korea, Kuwait, and Iraq, underscored his commitment to defending our country. Throughout his more than 3 decades of military service, Sergeant Major Power displayed an unwavering dedication to service and leadership. Deservingly, he was awarded multiple decorations and medals, demonstrating the legacy of honor and sacrifice he established. He retired from military service in 2012, at which time he began his new career as the Government and External Affairs Officer at the Training Center. After 12 years of faithful dedication to civic service and community engagement, he retired from that role on April 30th of this year, 2024. I am proud to represent outstanding service members like Sergeant Major Power here in Congress. And on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, it is my honor to recognize him for his distinguished service to our community and our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Would the gentleman care to make a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is now on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.